We've been told that age and hormones limit what's possible for women. But what if longevity isn't about slowing down? It's about syncing up.
Cycle syncing is the best way that you can take care of your biological systems for the 4 decades leading up to your eventual menopausal moment.
Alisa Vitti reveals how to use your female biology as your operating system for performance, not a problem to fix.
If you want to slow down hormonal aging, you've got to become very intentional about your diet after 35. As estrogen declines, bile production decreases, and so you're less able to consume high-fat foods without it then causing you to gain adipose tissue. The sweet spot for women is about every 3 hours, you need some form of replenishment because you've burned through all your usable glucose stores and your blood sugar's dropping. 13 hours of fasting overnight is good for every woman every day of the cycle.
This is where science meets feminine power. Alisa, I am so excited to welcome you back to the show. You are a true pioneer in women's health. I'm so inspired by everything you're doing, everything you continue to do. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Angela, for having me back. It's such a pleasure finally to be in person with you.
I know, isn't that amazing?
It's really interesting. There's not many women in the biohacking space. And so it's just really nice to connect in person and support each other because we need more female voices in the conversation.
We do. It's so nice to be with you. You talk a lot about stress and aging. Let's start there. Because I think, I don't know about you, but I think women have never been under more pressure than they are right now, right? Pressure at work, pressure to also run a household, to be a mum, and also to then show up and look good doing it all. There's just so much.
I know. And you're constantly, even I feel the pressure of, there's every magazine article telling you how to dress your best and the best outfits and everything has to be the best all the time. It's exhausting trying to keep up with all that mentally. But yeah, that's just sort of on the anecdotal side. But on the science side, we had a really important study that came out 6 or 8 months ago that talked about how women are now going through perimenopause at historically younger ages. And this is significant. It's historic, and it really is now sort of a full completing the circle, if you will. We've been seeing these little breadcrumbs along the way, right? Maybe 6, 7 years ago, we were starting to have the conversation in the media, precocious puberty is on the rise in girls. Well, now it's on the rise in boys. And now idiopathic infertility is affecting not just 1 in 10 couples, 1 in 8 couples. And and now here we are with women at 38 starting perimenopause, right? It has significant symptoms, the second stage of perimenopause where we start having irregular cycles and hot flashes and nights. Of course, perimenopause begins in the brain at 35, but you shouldn't feel anything until 48, 50. You can reverse engineer this and not have, I'm sailing through perimenopause as we speak, but you have to do that intentionally. That just doesn't magically happen. And, we can talk about that too, but you should not be feeling irregular cycles, months without a period, hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, irritability that you can't control at 38. That's early, rapid hormonal aging, a sign of rapid hormonal aging. And the stress piece is absolutely a critical factor because we're really, cortisol is one of our master regulating hormones, and stress really drives a couple of things, right? It drives inflammation in the body and it affects our mitochondrial health, which ages us faster. And then second, it downregulates the production of progesterone, which is a critical hormone in terms of our aging process as women, right? Progesterone is what gives you a healthy PMS-free cycle every month. It helps you conceive and maintain a pregnancy. And the amount of circulating progesterone that you have dictates how your perimenopausal experience is going to go. So we don't want to be allowing stress to kind of ruin our journey hormonally as women, but we are suffering under too much stress for sure.
You know what's really interesting, actually? I was interviewing Dr. Sarah E. Hill, who you and I have both spoken about before. And she was saying that in the studies that she's doing, when they are, studying cycling women, what they're finding is that 30% of the time, they're not ovulating.
Of course, because stress will stop ovulation, right? Absolutely. It's really a problem. And I think, when I take a step back, 10,000 view foot look at what is going on, I think that we are living so out of alignment with our own biological processes as women. We're trying to live like men, right? We're trying to live in a 24-hour clock versus our infradian rhythm, which I uncovered in my book when I came on and talked to you last time, the cycle syncing method in the FLO, where we're really looking at what does the female body give us as a roadmap for optimal living, right? And I'm thinking about this now, also thinking about what is the map in the body for us once we stop cycling, which I'm really excited about, right? Because what is the method that we need to be following, right? So in our reproductive years, we need to be supporting that infradian rhythm. That's the best way to manage stress for that 4-decade period of time, where you can really reduce your allostatic load very efficiently just by making sure you're modulating caloric intake, workout type and intensity. Just those two things alone will keep insulin and cortisol much more balanced. And in fact, I'm really proud to share that I'm conducting the world's first human clinical trial, IRB-approved trial on the cycle syncing method, my method. And we are almost done. And I'm very excited. Preliminary results are enormous. And, really hoping that we will be able to now have another option for women when they go to see their practitioners that isn't birth control for cycle health problems, right? If you're having PMS, synthetic hormone replacement in your 20s, 30s, and 40s isn't your only option. Now you can use the cycle syncing method to deal with PMS. We're finding in the study, we found that within 30 days of using the method, 80% symptom reduction, symptom burden severity reduction.
That's amazing.
It's massive.
That's massive. It's huge.
It's huge. So, that's 1 month. That's
1 month.
Pretty good.
That's incredible.
So, I think, and then if you can imagine that compounded over month, year over year. And I'm also here to sort of just report from the front lines. I'm the person who's been cycle syncing the longest on the planet, right? It's my method. I've been doing it the longest. And I'm certain that it is what has really contributed to me really being able to titrate the rate at which I'm aging from a hormonal perspective. I am 48 and a half. I'm not on any HRT yet. I'm certain that I will want to use those therapies at some point. But, I take the sort of cooking approach to these things, which is supplements or hormones or any of these types. You can always add more salt to the pot. But once you've added it to the pot, it's hard to take it out, right? So I'm happy to get on the HRT train when and if necessary, but to do it where I can delay that as long as possible, I can use the least amount as needed, and really have that be as effective and my body responsive to it as possible, is completely something that I have to participate in by taking care of my biological systems in advance. And cycle syncing is the best way that you can take care of your biological systems for the 4 decades leading up to your eventual menopausal moment, right? So it really helps with reducing stress, of course, because you're not adding the stress of squeezing yourself into a 24-hour clock all the time, right? You're giving yourself the space and time to go with the flow of your changing hormonal patterns.
It's so important. I mean, I loved one of the things you were talking about yesterday in your presentation here at the summit, talking about how when you are ovulating each month, you are effectively paying into your longevity bank account, which I don't think people realize enough in terms of bone, brain, metabolic health. Can you explain a little bit more about that for our listeners? Because I just think it's such an important thing.
Yeah, and I wish we all knew it, because I think we would feel much more reticent to trade and give up our ovulation, which is what we do when we take any sort of birth control, right? It doesn't matter what way you take it, if it's pill, implant, whatever device, those all suppress your hormonal production endogenously and shuts off ovulation. That's how it works. That's how it prevents pregnancies. It shuts off your ovulation. But every ovulation, when you do ovulate, it's gold. It's the whole benefit of cycling is the ovulatory moment, because every time you ovulate, that particular cocktail of estrogen, FSH, LH, testosterone, it helps create bone density. It's cardiovascularly protective in real time, cognitively protective, But then it also puts that, like you said, into your longevity bank account for when you are postmenopausal and no longer ovulating, right? And just keeps your bones stronger, right? And so think about if you are on synthetic birth control of some sort for 3 decades, that's 3 decades of your life where you are not supporting bone density, not supporting cognitive health, and not supporting cardiovascular health. Now, fast forward, you're postmenopausal. What do you think your bone density is going to be like? You've lost 30 years of building that bone density, right? You've traded it for that contraception. And we now live in an age, I get it. We sometimes want contraception, right? But we now live in an age with biometric devices and precision measurements that you could wear a watch, a ring, and you would know precisely when you're ovulating. And you could use barrier methods for that 48-hour window where your egg is viable and the 5 days where sperm can live in the body. We're talking about 7 days out of the month where you have to be protected. And for any of you who've ever been trying to conceive, you know how difficult it is to actually conceive, right? And it doesn't just happen any day of the month. So the idea that you would take a medication that would suppress your hormones each and every day, when we have these new updated technologies that give you more precision, it's like a little overkill, right? And the opportunity cost is very high, right? We are giving up decades of all of this, cardiovascular, osteoprotective, neuroprotective benefits of actually cycling and ovulating. And I think it's, I think if we understood that better, I don't think we'd all be so quick to just say, sure, yeah, let me just take that for everything. Let me take it for my PMS. Let me take it for my acne.
Especially when you look at like career women, how many women do you think, I mean, I did it for years, right? Unknowingly, really, of the consequences. And they'll take it in their 20s. And then it's like, oh, I want to start a family. So then you come off for a little tiny bit. But if you fall pregnant quickly, you're not off it very long before there's pregnancy. Then you're back on it. Then there's a pregnancy, back on it. And then you stay on it. And a lot of women are saying, how do I even know that I've gone through perimenopause? Because they're on birth control. And then, as you say, they end up with these problems, but they've kind of missed the boat. When you talk about cycle syncing and bringing, kind of optimizing also in perimenopause, you talk about some key hormones that control this process, right? Melatonin is really important. Cortisol, oxytocin. Walk us through those.
Another little known fact is that melatonin is the first hormone to downregulate in perimenopause. And that's important for us to understand because we think it's our sex hormones, but it's really melatonin that starts this shift in the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian conversation. There's a relationship between melatonin and FSH. And so that's sort of how it works. So sleep hygiene is really important your whole life, but especially after 35, become diligent about blue light blocking and sleep hygiene and sunlight exposure after 35 to protect melatonin production. But I also think it's the first HRT that women should be using is melatonin replacement. So I've been using it since 35, on and off various points for pregnancy and breastfeeding. But the research is really profound for women. The 3 milligram dose has been clinically evaluated for many reasons, bone density protecting, cardiovascular health, cognitive protection, breast cancer protection. Melatonin is critical for women. And all of these issues that I just mentioned, we have increased risk in midlife, right? Not just because of estrogen decline, but also because of melatonin decline. So it's my first HRT that I like to recommend for women, but you can start it at 35.
In the UK, it's prescription only.
It is because it's a hormone.
Yeah.
It's a hormone. I know you can get it over the counter in the States, but it is HRT. But we don't think of it that way.
No, but we should.
We should.
Clearly.
We should do. And I think it's the first HRT that we go on.
So this is at 35, start thinking about melatonin.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're trying to conceive, it helps protect ovulation. It, again, really protects ovarian health as well. Then obviously insulin is the next, most important thing, right? Because now we're talking about this blood sugar stability that is just table stakes for healthy endocrine function. So if you want to slow down hormonal aging, you've got to become very intentional about your diet after 35, So I made some critical choices and I've laddered up as I've gotten older through my midlife journey. So at 35, I stopped alcohol, for example. Then in my 40s, I started playing with fat intake, because as estrogen declines, bile production decreases. And so you're less able to consume high fat foods without it then causing you to gain adipose tissue. So that's another thing women don't know. They think, oh, let me just, I'll go to a juice bar and they have all these fun little snacks that I can eat them because there's no gluten and there's no dairy, but they're just full of fat, right? They're made of nuts and coconut oil and it's a fat bomb. It's not easy for women to digest fats in midlife because of this estrogen gallbladder relationship. So we have to become more moderate with our fat intake. And then the last sort of piece of this ladder that I've walked up is now being very diligent about my macros and my meal spacing. So I can only tolerate a maximum about 30 grams of carbohydrate per meal for blood sugar stability. And I checked that by wearing a CGM for one menstrual cycle.
This is net carbs, it would be.
Net carbs, yeah. I have to weigh and measure my food so that I'm making sure, so I don't have to wear a CGM every day because I don't prefer it, but to use it once for a month to make sure you understand your body's reaction to macronutrients, very useful tool. And now I just really am very intentional about my carbohydrate exposure as well. My protein has also increased. I've become very serious about strength training over the past year. I just celebrated my 1-year lift-iversary. I'm very proud of my strength
And you
gains.
got really strong.
I've gotten really strong. Yeah. I'm doing I have to translate it to kilos. I think 50 kilo squats, 90 kilo hip thrust, 35 kilo bench press, right? Really, really working on, it's it's an introvert sport.
Don't you find it's
it's very meditative.
It's very meditative.
I love doing it. I think it's a perfect sport for midlife women because it really is about you becoming an athlete and taking yourself seriously as an athlete. And so the food piece then becomes part of that identity shift around, well, I'm lifting, so therefore I also have to support my lifts with these dietary changes. So, you probably saw my little, wherever I go, if I'm traveling or if I'm at conferences, I have my little cooler bag and I bring all my meals in little baggies and I eat them. I meal prepped when I got here at my friend's flat or I rent an Airbnb. And there's no scenario that I've encountered yet where I can't feed myself the way that I want to biohack my hormones the way that I need to. And I think that's another mental shift that we have to make in midlife is, let's not be so accommodating. I'm going to say that. Let's not be so. Let's not
because we so often are, right? As women,
we don't want to offend anybody, and we don't want to make a fuss, and we don't want anybody to make a fuss over us, and we don't want to, stand out in a crowd. But we were at the Shard the other night for the speakers event, and I pulled out my little meal of wild salmon, purple cabbage, and cauliflower, and ate it at the bar. And everybody wanted to talk to me. Nobody else had any food. I mean, they had some food, but everybody wanted to talk to me about what it was that I was doing and why I was doing it. And I welcome the conversation because most of the time it's women in midlife and they would like to know how to feel better. And it takes a little effort to take care. But I think it's really about shifting from caretaking of others, mothering others in midlife to switching that maternal energy on yourself, right? So the same person that could pack a school lunch for your daughter or your son can pack a lunch for herself, right? It's the same muscle. You have that muscle, but you have to use it.
I want to come back actually to some of your meal prepping because I think it'd be useful for people. Just to go back first and clarify a little bit of what you were saying on fat. So this is interesting. So we are less, because we often hear the insulin and cortisol conversation, right? But we're less good at digesting fats. And then we also are storing them more easily. Because I think that's what you're saying. So that's something I've certainly noticed is if I eat quite a bit of fat, I would now gain weight.
Yes, you would.
Quite easily.
Yes, you would. And that's normal at this stage of life. That's why historically, my grandmother, she looked sort of like a barrel-shaped person at a certain point. And that's just what happens. It's a perfect storm of declining fat metabolism, meaning digestive decline, and sarcopenia, right? So muscle wasting. So you don't have a place for, glucose to go. Right? Glucose can only go in one of two places in the body. It can go into your muscles or it can go into your adipose tissue. So if it's not going into your muscles, it's going, more. So everything you eat in midlife, right? The carbohydrates, if you're not building muscle, will turn into fat. And fat, since you can't break it down, will also add to fat growth, adipose tissue growth. So it's like a double whammy. You're getting it from both sides. And you really have to biohack that, right? By lifting heavy weights, progressive overload lifting, right? You can't just go and lift your 5-pound dumbbells 100 times to a fun dance song and think that's going to do anything. It did in your 20s and 30s. It was fine then. It worked okay. Even though, Angela, if I could go back in time and tell myself one thing,
would you lift heavier then?
I would start lifting at 18.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will be having my daughters, they'll be doing body weight. Like right now, my 11-year-old, 10 and almost 11, she does pull-ups on a pull-up bar at home. She does squats, push-ups, those 3 things. And like monkey bar, like crawling across the monkey bars, hanging outside in our yard. So body weight lifting, she's quite strong. And I'm like, and I tell her why I want her to do this. I'm like, we're building your muscle memory now so that you have it forever. Because the muscle gains and the muscle memory you make in your teen years, you have for life. So if I could go back and tell my teen self something, it would be to lift, seriously lift.
My daughter does it with gymnastics. And she does hours of gymnastics. What I notice as well is keeping girls in sport is the best way to keep them out of the kind of skinny conversation that we grew up,
We need to be strong, nourished, and feminine.
Yes.
Okay. And strong means, you're working with your body, you're taking some supplements. Nourished is you're eating. Let's not be afraid of food. If you're confused, yes, you would be confused. I mean, God knows the media tells you this day, do this. The next day, though, this is better. There's a fad diet every other month. And we have come to be confused about food and afraid of food, honestly. We really have. So my best antidote when I work with clients privately is wear a CGM, follow the cycle syncing methodology for one cycle, and be a hormone biohacker. Just see what happens. Let's let go of the dogma for a month and see your actual response to food separate from what you believe it's supposed to be. Because a lot of us are afraid to eat carbohydrates in the morning, for example. A lot of us are afraid to eat too much protein. We're just afraid of a lot of different things because we keep getting confusing and conflicting messages in the media. So instead of relying on hearsay, get some data about your bioindividual response to macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And then from there, you have your game plan. You know what you can eat, what you can tolerate, and how often you need to eat to keep yourself stable. It's much more often than women have been told because everybody's telling you not to eat. Don't eat fast. But really, where I see the sweet spot for women is about every 3 hours, you need some form of replenishment because you've burned through all your usable glucose stores and your blood sugar is dropping. Hypoglycemia is just as impactful on progesterone production long-term. It's a form of stress. When your blood sugar drops too low, now cortisol is going to rise. And then we have a sort of a downregulation of progesterone production. And this then can over time interrupt ovulation, make PMS worse, age your hormones faster, put you into perimenopause sooner, decrease your fertility. So we have to nourish ourselves according to our biological needs, not according to trends and fads, right? And it's gender specific. People ask me all the time, what do you feed your husband? I'm like, I don't feed my husband because I love him. I feed him on his birthday and Italian high holidays. And then the rest of the time, I try to keep him out of the kitchen. He can eat in a particular window because the studies are very clear that intermittent fasting, extended fasting is excellent for male longevity and hormetic stress. But it has a very opposite effect for women in their reproductive years. You can do a little bit of extended fasting. I'm talking, so first of all, 13 hours of fasting overnight is good for every woman every day of the cycle. In the follicular and ovulatory phases, you can do a little extended fast. You could maybe push that 14 hours, 15 hours in the morning if you want. But that's it. You really need blood sugar stability must be your priority if you want to really protect ovulation and progesterone production.
And everything you're saying, I've noticed myself, I'm like, it's not difficult for me to stay lean with that approach. That's the thing. And I wish people would realize this because they think, I must restrict my food intake. Yeah. Actually, having really good amounts of protein, as you're saying, with carbohydrates, healthy fats, it's more, and resistance training.
You build metabolic flexibility.
You do.
In fact, and I'm here to report from the front line. So, I've been 210 pounds. That's, what is that, 105 kilos or something like that?
Yeah, we do it in pounds anyway, actually, weight here.
So 210 pounds 3 times, once with my PCOS and both pregnancies. I'm very sensitive to estrogen. So it wasn't like I was eating, junk during my pregnancies, but I just just stimulates adipose growth for me. So I've maintained good 60, 70 pound weight loss most of my life from my PCOS and from these pregnancies. But going after this last pregnancy, I was like, all right, I'm officially in my midlife journey. I know what's coming, metabolically speaking. So let me get on it, right? Let me start taking my biohacking up to the next level, age appropriate, stage appropriate. Started with the strength training, started dialing in these macros. And I lost 25 pounds in 6 months.
That's a lot.
I've actually
without actually really trying, you were just aligning and thinking that's the thing.
And I've never been this lean. I'm 126 pounds, 5'6". It's really remarkable. So I upped my nourishment from even what I was already doing, and it had a really profound improvement to my metabolic flexibility. So yeah, we don't have to be afraid of nourishing ourselves. We actually just have to start doing it. Whenever I'm traveling, I've got to have a kitchen. But now it's so much easier. There's Airbnb, there's online shopping apps. You can pre-order your groceries to be delivered. Like, you can biohack your cooking and your food when you travel.
I want to take a quick break from this episode to thank our sponsors. During perimenopause, your energy doesn't necessarily just dip because you're getting older. It happens at the cellular level. Your mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses in your cells, stop replicating like they used to. And that's one of the reasons why you feel exhausted, foggy, and like your resilience is slipping. Supporting a process called mitophagy clears out damaged mitochondria and restores vitality, but your body's ability to do this naturally declines with age. Urolithin A is the only known nutrient proven to trigger mitophagy, but around 60% of people can't produce it from food alone due to gut bacteria imbalances. So if you're waking up tired, dragging yourself through the day, or wondering why your workouts no longer give you the results they used to, supporting your mitochondria can make a big difference. MitoPure delivers a clinical dose of urolithin A, no gut conversion needed, and it's backed by over 500 published studies. In clinical trials, it's been shown to boost muscle strength by 12% in 16 weeks, improve endurance by 17% in just 8 weeks, and support cellular recovery and resilience. And that's why I take MitoPure every single day. It's really helped me get stronger in the gym and also recover faster. And like me, many women have also noticed that their skin looks brighter and more radiant. And that's why Timeline have created a skincare range too. I personally use their serum and eye cream in the morning and their gorgeous night cream before bed. It's become a non-negotiable part of my routine. And Timeline are giving you an exclusive discount off your first order of MitoPure when you use code Angela at checkout. Just head over to timeline.com/Angela and enter code Angela for your exclusive discount. This is your chance to feel the shift in your energy, your skin, and your vitality from the inside out. Head over to timeline.com/Angela and enter code Angela to get your discount. I'll also put a link with the discount code in the show notes below. Walk us through what it looks like, because I think people would be curious. What does a day in the life of Alisa look like?
Well, when I'm traveling, I can tell you about this trip and then I can tell you about home life. But so I arrived on the red eye Tuesday night, which I hate red eyes, but it was my only option. I could not sleep at all. I tried. I just could not do it. It was not happening. So I just closed my eyes and rested, and that was as good as I got. And then I arrived, I think it was sort of 6:30 in the morning. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to orient myself as if this is now daytime for me. So I just immediately, when I got to my friend's flat, I had breakfast. So I went from the airport, it was about 2 hours with the London traffic on the tube strike, to my friend's flat. It was quite a journey. Got a tour. Got a very slow tour. And then I had given her my grocery list, so she actually ordered on Ocado for me. And so everything was in the fridge waiting. She said, what are you going to do with all this food? She really could not wrap her head around what I was going to do. So I spent 3 hours meal prepping, and we were chatting, and, she was learning. And I boiled a big pot of water. I boiled a small pot for brown rice. The pot of water, in went 2 bags of green beans, pulled those out, then put in my cauliflower, pulled that out, then put in my broccoli, pulled that out, then put in my cabbage, pulled that out. So I don't steam them. I just quick flash boil them like in and out. So they stay a little crisp, but they're just faster and a little easier to digest. And also, I don't know if she had a steamer basket, so I just made do. And then I turned on the oven, I chopped up 4 sweet potatoes, roasted those, simple, then roasted some chicken breast, roasted 8 pieces of salmon, and sauteed some turkey mince, 2 pounds of turkey mince. And she was like, what is all of this? Are you going to eat all of this food? I was like, yes, I am. And it was for 6 days. So I knew exactly how much to make because I do this all the time. And I let
Are you just refrigerating it or do you have to freeze it?
No, I just
This is going to last for 6 days.
Yes, it's going to last for, and I understand people get a little anxious about food safety and bacteria and all of that, but I use almost no oil. Well, no oil in the vegetable prep at all. And then everything stays cold. So I chill it down to room temperature. Then I immediately put it in the fridge. And I keep it in the fridge. So bacteria and like food, leftover food is, if you're like leaving it out for extended periods of time, you're reheating it multiple times. But if it's cold, it's okay. And in fact, one of my fun little biohacks that I've been playing with lately is I eat all my grains cold because studies show that it actually reduces the glucose spike by 57%. And I do find a noticeable difference if I eat grains warm versus cold or room temperature. I do much better. I still have to titrate the amount, but I prefer.
And you get the resistant starch, right?
Exactly.
With cooled rice and
Exactly.
potatoes.
Yeah. So I have everything cold, which is great because it's easier. And then I just I weigh it all so I know my macros, and then I bag it cold so I don't have to worry about plastic leaching into my food because I'm traveling. I can't, use my fancy stainless steel and glass containers. That's just not practical. And then I bring my bags with me, and I even did breakfast. So breakfast, I scrambled up all my egg whites and portioned them out and sauteed some zucchini with it, and have my little, what is that, like Scandinavian brick rye bread thing. I measured that out. And so in the hotel, in the morning, I wake up, I boil my water in the tea kettle, I make my little adaptogen matcha. And I just recently started incorporating matcha, even though I'm very caffeine sensitive and I can only have like a very small dose, but there's a really profound study on the particular polyphenol in ceremonial grade matcha that kills breast cancer cells. So I think it's a really good preventative idea to use it medicinally. So I do that after I eat. Of course, I could never have it on an empty stomach, but I eat my breakfast. I have a little plates at the hotel, and I dump out my food from the fridge, and I eat that, have my matcha, take a shower, take my supplements.
I love it.
Get to where I'm going, pack my...
So inspiring.
Yeah, I have my lunch bag, my 3:00 snack, and my dinner all in my little refrigerated case because I don't know how long I'm going to be out today, and I have to eat on time. Once that blood sugar starts dropping, I really notice it, and it creates a lot of stress in my body. So I'd just rather be prepared, have my food. There's nothing worse for me now that I'm, really dialed in with this than being like, where am I going to eat? How long is it going to take for the food to arrive at the table? When you're really hungry and you're like at a restaurant and it's like, oh my God, when is the food? Are they going to serve me? And then the food is never exactly what you need. There's not enough protein, not enough veg, too much fat, too much salt.
And that's when you overeat, right? Because you're like, oh my God, I'm just going to eat the whole bread
plus
basket
then
because
you
I'm
have a
so
glass
hungry.
of wine, and but the sodium intake at restaurant food and the quality of oil is really also concerning. Typically, you're not getting good quality oils at restaurants. You're getting exposed to seed oils, and then high sodium because they want you to drink more alcohol, so they overly salt the food. So it's restaurants in midlife are problematic for women. I find that it's very difficult to eat out at restaurants and to really eat in the way that I would like. I mean, sometimes you have to do it, but when I do it, I ask for a no salt preparation. I flat out lie and say that I have hypertensive issues and I need no sodium because they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what you want? No salt and no oil.
This will contribute to like the bloating and things that women are so commonly experiencing.
Yes. And, I'm about to write, I have a weekly newsletter that goes out and a new podcast launching, but I'm about to do a whole expose on electrolytes and why this is very gender specific information that we need to have. All the sodium in these electrolyte mixes is great for men who are fluid wasters, right? For example, alcohol digestive metabolic rates in men and women are very different because men are metabolic wasters, and we retain things because we 3D print the human beings. We're just much more metabolically efficient. We hold on to things for longer, which is why we metabolize alcohol more slowly. Similarly, all this high sodium in electrolyte mixes is more problematic for women. We do not want that much sodium. Especially in midlife, our cardiovascular health is changing. A lot of women report heart palpitations, and we have spontaneous hypertension development in midlife because of decreasing estrogen and its impact on cardiovascular well-being. We don't want to be taking in all this excess sodium, and there's a lot of it in restaurant food. So yeah, if I eat out, I usually order like a plain piece of fish if I can find it, or a clean piece of beef, and I ask for a no salt and no oil preparation. Butter is okay. You want to get that butyric acid for the gut and the brain. That's really good. But yeah, and then just steamed veggies.
What are your macros because you're mentioning you do the veg, you have some carbohydrates, you have some protein. For someone listening to this, what are the rough kind of macronutrient ratios that you're going for in terms of, say, if we work with percentages of protein, carbs, fats, do you think?
I mean, I don't know it in percentages off the top of my head, but I am, so it is by weight and height. So I'm 5'6" and I'm 126 pounds. So I do 30 grams of protein, 4 meals a day. I have 4 main meals, 9, noon, 3, and 6, approximately.
So you're getting 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein. Yeah.
And then I add another 30 grams split into 2 mini meals, one while I'm working out. I have to have something while I'm working out, and then something a little bit before bed, like a little pudding that I make. It's actually kind of a funny pudding. I do defatted peanut butter protein powder with desiccated organ meat powder and cacao powder. And I blend it with a little monk fruit. It's delicious.
Tastes nice.
It's a little chocolate pudding. You don't taste the organ meat at all. Obviously, the cacao covers it. But I love the vitamin A in the organ meats because our ovaries and our reproductive organs have 14 different receptor sites for beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is essential for our ovarian and reproductive organ health. So I get it in with orange root vegetables and organ meats throughout the day. Another little fun hack. So yeah, 30 grams of protein at each meal. Then I do about 500 grams of veg split up throughout the day. And it's a combination of leafy greens and other veg. So each meal is then also approximately 30 grams of carbohydrate, except at night, I tend to lighten up a bit so that I don't end up sweating at night, right? Because a lot of those vasovagal and vasomotor issues that we have in midlife come from just having our carbohydrates at the wrong time of the day. Too much carbohydrate exposure after 3 p.m. What are you doing with all those carbohydrates? Are you lifting? Are you out in the garden? Are you putting that glucose into your muscles after 3 p.m.? Typically not. You're at the office, you're commuting home, you're sitting, you're not going out for the big exercise. The better time of day to have your carbohydrate intake is earlier, when you're going to be moving and most active. At night, I just do non-starchy vegetables.
I find that also, I see that in my resting heart rate. I'm always encouraging my clients to move the carbohydrate intake earlier and exercise kind of earlier and then have the carbs. And then I don't know about you, but I see resting heart rate go down much earlier in the night and heart rate variability improve as well.
It's so critical. It's for quality sleeping, because again, that sugar is stimulating to the brain, the heart, the muscle tissue. So if you want to be more deeply resting, you want to have I really don't have any starchy carbs after 3:30. It's just veggies. Fat intake, I'd play with that. It's anywhere between 50 and 60 grams a day, quite just moderate. And I do a full variety of fat exposure. So some olive oil, avocado, butter, and lots of fish oil. So I really try to rotate all the fats through myself throughout the day.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Clean and simple, Yeah,
that's the thing. It's the simplicity of what you shared there. I think anyone could do this, right? If you set aside a few hours on a Sunday,
just
cook up a whole bunch of this stuff, and then you've got it for the whole week.
Yeah. And, I obviously synchronize the veggie choices with where I'm in my cycle and the grain choices with where I'm in my cycle. But really, keeping my blood sugar stable is the name of the game, making sure I'm not overdoing the carbs so my blood sugar's where it wants to be and my cortisol stays balanced, exercising appropriately where I'm in my cycle. So more cardio in the first half, zone 2 in the second half, but strength training every day of the cycle, really critical for really protecting these master regulating hormones so that my sex hormones can continue to thrive, right? That's the goal.
That's the key. And for women who have kind of gone on from that stage, so they're either getting cycle disruption, so now that's natural because they have reached
supposed to happen.
Postmenopause transition, or they're postmenopause. I mean, the same principles are going to be important, right, in terms of glucose metabolism, inflammation.
Yes, except we'd add a couple of things, right? Because now you've gone from an infradian rhythm dominant existence in your reproductive years to back to a circadian only existence. There's even studies that show that our gut microbiome looks much like a male gut microbiome profile postmenopausally. So it's very interesting. So it becomes less about gender and more about biological rhythm in terms of how things are functioning. I think it's really interesting. We want to be looking at insulin and cortisol management, which we've talked through. But then we also want to talk about melatonin, which we've talked about, sleep and all of that, sleep hygiene. And the last two are oxytocin and nitric oxide. These are critical master regulating hormones in midlife for women to be intentionally building more of. Oxytocin is probably my favorite one to talk about, but I do want to talk about nitric oxide. And I want to talk a little bit about methylene blue for a second when we talk about nitric oxide, because there's some little known information about that we should all know. So oxytocin is a hormone that we produce in moments of bonding, right? So breastfeeding, hugging, petting your animals, walking in nature, cooking, meditating, all of these things create oxytocin. But oxytocin is a very healing and restorative molecule. I mean, people have nasal sprays with oxytocin. It's really powerful. And I've been looking at it for now probably 2 decades in terms of its impact on ovulation regularity, specifically for women who have issues with that, but also for like hormone longevity, right? So there's a role that oxytocin has in protecting our health span that I don't think we're discussing enough. It is cardioprotective, it's immunologically boosting, it's neuroprotective, it helps with bone density. I mean, there's so many benefits to producing more oxytocin. And we started our conversation with stress. So cortisol and oxytocin have a really interesting relationship. If you want to flush cortisol, you could maybe jump on a trampoline. Maybe you could do some of those things. Maybe you take some magnesium. Okay. But it's really all the oxytocin boosting activities that are really going to just more rapidly flush cortisol, right? The number one way to flush cortisol and build oxytocin is through orgasmic plateau, which I know is a little dicey of us to say, but that's really the place, the stage during a woman's arousal process, the end being climax. You also need to cultivate your sexual metabolism, right? And to me, that's about, thinking through how can I make more oxytocin? How can I protect my nitric oxide creation in the body? How do I do that from a functional and natural perspective, right? Listen, the hardest thing about perimenopause and menopause and hormones in general is that we have to kind of come to the conclusion that it isn't as easy as it once was. Now, I went through this at a young age where I was sort of postmenopausal at 16 because I had all these hormone problems. My ovaries weren't functioning. I was living every menopausal symptom you could imagine as a teenager. So I understand that it's hard and psychologically upsetting to feel like, especially when you haven't had that issue, right? So I've been doing this because I've had no choice for my entire adult life. So I can appreciate that at 45, you wake up one day and you don't recognize yourself and everything isn't working the way that it used to. And you are a little, righteously indignant about, well, why do I have to give up my alcohol? And why do I have to stop having the whatever I feel like eating? And why do I have to do all this now? I can appreciate why you would feel that way. But unfortunately, those feelings aside, the reality is your biology is changing. And you have one of two choices, fundamentally. You can keep digging in your heels and wishing it were different and continuing to do the same things that's going to give you the results of more symptoms. Or you can align with what's happening in the shifting biology of your body in midlife, and you can start to shift your habit stacks and just do what your body is asking you to do. Because then the payoff, the ROI, and I know you feel it and I feel it, is you just feel great. You just feel good. And I mean, that's worth it. Yes. Is it a pain to like order the groceries in meal prep. Sure, I'd love to sit down and do nothing all day. That'd be fun. I'm lazy fundamentally like everybody else. Because I know how bad I can feel. I had that early experience. I know how bad it can get. I mean, I was a decade of obesity, depression, anxiety, insomnia, brain fog. I mean, it was terrible. And I totally appreciate how bad it can get in midlife for women because I've lived through it just at a randomly younger age. I'm super motivated to stay on this side of my experience because I'd much rather do whatever it takes to generate this output from my endocrine system than to, just not put in the effort and kind of have the other thing happen. All the symptoms recur. It's just not worth it to me. It's like somebody who has like a dairy allergy and you're like, oh, don't you miss cheese? And you're like, no, not really, because I'd really rather not feel that discomfort, right? But this is just your whole endocrine system, right? Supporting that as well. And be gentle with yourself. These are new habits. It's a new identity. I always ask myself the question, and this is a question you can ask yourself, what would a hormone biohacker do?
It's a great question.
What would a hormone biohacker would definitely order groceries and meal prep. A hormone biohacker would definitely get to sleep and use her her blue light blocking glasses or red lens glasses. A hormone biohacker would definitely take her supplements. She'd probably stop drinking alcohol at some point, after 35.
That helps me.
Dramatic.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
huge.
Can you imagine?
In terms of mood stability and energy, I wouldn't go back. It's like you were saying with the dairy intolerance and the cheese. I would not go back to alcohol for that reason.
I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 13 years. I do not miss it. People ask me, someone asked me, what do you do at night to like calm down after a stressful day? This is another female entrepreneur on the trade show floor. And I said, I do
work on my orgasmic plateau.
Well, that's later. But before that, to get myself relaxed for that self session, I usually either do like a cacao with adaptogen mushrooms.
Oh, nice.
And I do that. Just water. I don't necessarily have to do it with some sort of milk. So just keep it really simple. Cinnamon, really make it nice for myself, like a little ritual. Or I do herbal tinctures that I mix up like lemon balm, oat straw, lavender, make a little shot glass of that with some water and just slug it back and sit down and have a hot cup of tea, herbal tea. And then that playing with adaptogens and herbs, I mean, okay, please let this be somebody else's $1 million business idea. Can somebody please start, instead of a bar, like where you go for a cocktail, could somebody please start a tonic bar where we can go in for adaptogenic drinks, not alcohol substitutes that are all still glucose bombs, but like pure, healthy adaptogen tonics where you can order from the bar which herbs you need. Do I need some oat straw right now? And we could have like an herbal mixologist.
So
wouldn't that be so great?
So great.
Couple in every city. I mean, I would be there, and I would definitely think a lot of women in midlife would love that because we can still go out, dress up, put on our cute outfits, but go be social, but do it in a way that's health promoting. It would be humongous.
And still feel great the next day. That's the thing.
And please send me your business proposal so I can invest in the company. I'd love that. So yeah, I think that's what I do. And I think, alcohol is such a concern. Again, women, we have longer exposure to it because we metabolize it more slowly, sitting in our system longer than it is in men. It's a class 1 carcinogen. So it is like smoking. It will cause cancer. Any amount, no amount is safe. So if you have history of female cancers in the family, this is something you have to stop doing, whether you like it or not, if you are really serious about prevention. And then thirdly, it's a glucose bomb. And bombs are disastrous, right? So you just do not want to put that in your system metabolically for any reason in general.
I would always make my blood, when I used to have it, my blood glucose drop on a CGM, and then later you're going to look for something.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Nothing redeeming about it.
No.
I want to take a quick break from this episode to thank our sponsors. I'm so excited to share my experience with the Carol Bike. It's truly revolutionized my workouts. Carol Bike offers the shortest, most effective workouts, scientifically proven to deliver superior health and fitness benefits in 90% less time compared to regular cardio, with just 2 20-second sprints. I can achieve what would typically take much longer. Carol's AI's personalized workouts are tailored to my ability and fitness level, making sure every second counts. And what I love the most is that the bike uses reduced exertion HIIT or REHIIT, which gives me all the benefits of a high intensity workout without spiking cortisol levels. And it's perfect for busy women like me, especially those in perimenopause or anyone juggling a stressful lifestyle with just 2 rides per week, each only about 8 minutes long in total. It gives me amazing benefits like improving insulin sensitivity, reducing visceral fat, and boosting my VO2 max. VO2 max is the leading indicator of longevity, and Carol Bike's time-efficient workouts are scientifically proven to give a 12% increase in VO2 max in just 8 weeks, nearly double the improvement compared to traditional cardio. Plus, the epoch effect from these short rides means you continue burning calories for hours afterwards, equivalent to a 45-minute run, but without the time commitment. Carol is by far the most efficient and powerful way I've found to stay fit and healthy. If you'd like to learn more, head over to carolbike.com and enter code Angela at checkout for your exclusive discount. Carol is so sure you'll love it that they even offer a 100-day money-back guarantee. That's carolbike.com and code Angela for your exclusive discount. And you can also find the link in the code in the show notes.
I was going to ask you, because you brought this up yesterday, it was interesting on the fertility panel. So cold exposure for women is not pro-aging, pro-healthy aging.
Listen, if you do it, you just have to do it at a much warmer temperature. So men need to do it like icicle style, but we actually get the benefits if we do it at sort of just cool. But cold actually creates more stress, more cortisol response in the body for females than for men. So we don't get the same benefits in the ice bath. You should not sit in a bath of ice. You actually don't need the ice. You just need it to be cool.
Anyway.
But and that's what I was saying yesterday. I think for women, especially with thyroid issues that run rampant in women, like 1 in 2 women struggle with it. And midlife, it's a thyroid crisis in midlife because estrogen declining and then the shift in conversation between the brain and the ovaries and the adrenals, it can be a little dicey for the thyroid. The thyroid tries to compensate and then it starts to, kick the bucket. So, I think you want to be careful with cold exposure, especially because when thyroid is not working properly, it's harder for you to regulate yourself thermogenically as it is. So cold exposure is not going to help you, but heating up the body gives you a little, it's a cortisol flush. I was actually in the sauna on Thursday with my friend as a way to bond us. We hadn't seen each other in a while, but then also to just sort of help myself from the jet lag. I mean, it was I felt that cortisol flush so profoundly. It was a near sexual experience. I'm in the sauna oh my God, this feels so good, just because of the rapid cortisol flushing from being in that heat, a dry sauna. It wasn't infrared. It was just a good old fashioned dry sauna. And it helps, metabolically, it helps with detox. It's hormetic stress. So you're still getting that hormetic stress, but you don't have to be in an ice bath. And then, of course, if you're still cycling, you would not, from a Chinese medicine point of view, you would definitely not want to do anything like that during the cold stages of your cycle, which, is really like the menstrual phase and the follicular phase. Maybe you could do a cool dip in your ovulatory phase, and that's about it. So there's one time of the cycle where you could dip into a non-ice bath, just cooler, but what's the value?
It doesn't have the same longevity research either as compared to sauna. It's interesting what you were saying there about the cortisol flush and how you felt it. Because I remember when I interviewed Stephen Kotler, the founder of the FLO Collective, and he was talking about how much he used sauna to actually promote further flow states, right? That would be how he'd flush out the neurochemicals and encourage more deep work, better productivity. And I think so often, particularly as women, we don't give ourselves permission to go and do those recovery things that actually make us more efficient and give us time back to our family.
And the female body shows us the roadmap of how we should be resting and restoring, right? So melatonin is made in darkness, right? When we're sleeping. That's a very feminine, if we talk about feminine energy, right? It's the yin, it's the dark in Chinese medicine, right? So melatonin is a female, feminine, energy-based hormone. It's made in darkness in the void of you doing nothing while you're sleeping. Then in the cycle itself, there's a roadmap of feminine energy, which is what cycle syncing, pure productivity is all about. There's a time to give out to others, and there's a time to do your own deep work, and there's a time to rest and reflect. There's value in allowing yourself to engage with your feminine energy because it protects against rapid hormonal aging. It allows you to be more productive because you're coming from a place of rest and restoration. And it just optimizes your creativity in ways that you know when you're tapped out and you're crispy around the edges mentally. Taking care of your body in aligning with it is really what allows us to do that more efficiently as women.
And has allowed you to have the success. I guess for someone listening to this, they might look at you and go, wow, that's like, it's amazing, everything you've done. And now you have this super successful business. You're about to launch a podcast, which is awesome. And
I'm going to have to take notes from you
soon. You're so sweet. For someone who if they wanted to look back through the lens when you were starting, and you know, it's no easy thing to get a business off the ground, right? You've got to have huge amounts of energy. Did you at that point, did you have strict boundaries with yourself following this, knowing that it was going to be the thing that gave you the energy?
I mean, I had just recently recovered my cycle. So there was no way I was going to let anything get me back. I mean, again, having gone through that for a full decade, I couldn't ask, you couldn't pay me to do anything to really distract from that. So and it has been intensely stressful for sure to be the first femtech founder in the United States, possibly the planet. I don't know. I haven't checked that statistic, but I started the company the idea was conceived in 2010, and I officially was building in 2011 and launched early 2012. Femtech wasn't even a word then. People didn't even understand what it was that I was trying to do. And on top of that, I was talking about menstruation and natural hormonal health care. I mean, it was...
People weren't ready for that even then, right?
But I just didn't care. I was on a mission.
Thank God you didn't.
And so, really taking care of myself was an important part of that, because I knew I had to play a long game. I knew this was going to be a marathon. So there was no point in trying to burn myself out for what? We just needed, health and wealth is not just money and supplements. It's habit stacking over time. Time is the ingredient that is the difference between money and wealth and habits and health. Time is the thing. So I was like, okay, I'm playing the long game with my business. I'm also playing the long game with my hormonal health care, right? I'm doing that. That's why I do all these things consistently over time. I don't have to be perfect. I just go for 80% of the time, right? And I know that the arc of that trajectory is going to get me where I want to go in time. And the same thing with business. Starting a business is very exhausting, is very draining on the body. So you have to really take care of yourself as a female founder in a way that's different than men. Men and women do business differently. And I think that when women force themselves into that sort of more masculine archetype, I see the wear and tear on their hormonal health and their fertility and their perimenopause very clearly. So cycle syncing has been a way for me to really protect my hormonal health while allowing me to optimize my productivity, right? So there's times where I'm out and about, and there's times where I'm doing deep work, and I just structure it that way. You can do whatever you want. No one's making you do anything else, right? Turns out you can do what you want. Turns out you're actually free to do what you want.
Even though we think we can't.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And sometimes it just takes you doing it to see that things don't fall apart the way that you imagine. The worst case scenario of if I don't do this, it's going to all go to pot. No, actually, it's fine. And giving yourself more time and breathing room to do your best work is always better than rushing to just get something done.
I love that, because I think, given a long enough timeline, most people can achieve what they want. It's just that they give themselves such a short timeline, then they get frustrated, and that's the fast track to burnout, right?
And the other thing that I did was that I did not take any outside investment, so that I could really take the time that I wanted in the way that I wanted to build the business in the way that I needed. So that, because I know once you sort of take on, especially institutional capital from banks, investment banks, becomes you're on their timeline, and it becomes a much more stressful conversation. So you can also structure the financing of your business in a way that supports you as a female founder. And there's many financing vehicles available now, many more than were available to me, 15 years ago. So you should look into those things instead of just assuming that you have to go one way with, venture capital.
Before we close then, what would you say are the non-negotiables for you that help you, have your hormones in balance, like you're aging so much slower than you otherwise could be. You're super successful. What are the non-negotiables?
Obviously, meal prepping.
Clearly.
Because if I don't have my food,
Definitely not.
if I don't have my food, I'm such a cranky person.
If we're going to take one thing away, we'll 100%
cook
be
your
meal
food
prep
and have it ready to go.
We eat every 3 hours.
So that's definitely a non-negotiable. I would say movement every day is non-negotiable for me. So that's the lifting and steps and whatever I'm doing. And then I would say sleep. I mean, it's very boring. I don't do anything. I don't take a lot of fancy supplements. I haven't started taking anything, let's say, specialized yet. I'm looking into it, but I right now it's just super basic things. I think if you get the foundation right, you need less of the bells and whistles. And so I'm just really diligent about that. Same way that I am with my kids, right? I want them to eat well. I want them to move their bodies and I want them to get good quality sleep because I know how foundational that is. Now, why wouldn't I turn that same maternal instinct on myself? That's not logical. So I do those things. And they really pay huge ROI, the biggest.
And that really is like self-love really as well.
Yeah.
I think we need a bit more of that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Alisa.
for having me.
I'm so excited that you have a podcast coming out. So where can people connect with you to hear about everything you're doing? I know you have a newsletter.
Yes, subscribe to the newsletter. I break down all the research that's gender specific for women and what products are worth your time, what are not, what biohacks are better for women and not. It's very gender nuanced. You can go to my Instagram link in bio. So that's alisa.vitti. If you need help with your hormonal health, you can go to FLO Living, and we do telehealth around the world. So if you need any issue, if you need us to look at what's going on, we can help you from wherever you are. My books are sold wherever books are sold as WomanCode and in the FLO. And then please, if you're not tracking your cycle, please download the MyFLO app. It gives you an actual score on this fifth vital sign, so you can know if your cycle is overall improving or getting worse and what you actually do from a functional medicine perspective to improve your cycle in real time with things you can do at home. I think that's pretty much everything, right? So books, app, website,
Instagram, newsletter.
Podcast will be coming out. We'll make the announcement when it's launching, couple weeks.
Stay tuned for that.
Yes.
So excited. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
it's been amazing.
Angela.
And just being in person has been incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.